Pure human awareness, isolated from a structural framework, is inherently unstable. It shifts and drifts aimlessly, lacking the gravity to hold a consistent form. Nasir Khusraw, an 11th century Persian philosopher, analyzed this instability in his work Al-Akhwan. By deconstructing Khosrow's model of the heavy soul, we can compare his findings with Sufi mysticism and both Western and Eastern ontologies. This investigation explores whether the requirement of a rational intellect to stabilize consciousness is a universal law found across disparate human cultures. Khusraw's argument posits the universal soul is a void, taking on structural matter only from the universal intellect. This cosmic exchange is a blueprint for the human mind. Rationality provides the framework, giving the soul's raw energy its form. Khusraw reinterprets religious imagery, specifically the scales of Judgment Day, as a model for this metaphysical density. The text suggests that a soul fused with intellect becomes heavy. In human behavior, this weight manifests as observable peace, focus, and stability. Conversely, a soul lacking this intellectual bond is light, resulting in volatility and a restless, drifting state of being. Khusraw describes this state as lacking numeric value, meaning an unformed soul has no defined boundaries or ontological substance. He concludes that moving into the next realm with a weightless soul is equivalent to non-existence, as the soul never achieved the density required for a permanent identity. Khusraw effectively translates a religious judgment into a law of psychology, where the intellect acts as the anchor for the self. While Jalal al-Din Rumi is often celebrated for his focus on emotion, his poetry reinforces this hierarchy of reason. Within his Mathnawi, Rumi identifies the universal intellect as the father and the soul as the mother of creation. Under this model, the soul provides the life force, but the intellect is required to grant that force its final shape and trajectory. Rumi describes the lower soul as a chaotic force that must be tethered by the intellect to achieve spiritual elevation. If you're enjoying this exploration of philosophy, please like and subscribe to support the channel. Even within the ecstatic reaches of Sufism, the intellect remains the architecture that prevents the soul from dissipating into chaos. Classical Western thought mirrors these structural observations, beginning with Aristotle's De Anima. Aristotle defined the soul, or psyche, as the biological form of the body, the basic animator of life. However, he argued that actualizing knowledge required a second component, the active intellect, or nous. This mapping reveals a shared structural dependency. In both systems, the animating soul requires an external intellectual force to grant it permanence beyond simple sense perception. Immanuel Kant later arrived at a similar prerequisite during the European Enlightenment. Kant's maxim that intuitions without concepts are blind aligns with Khusraw's light soul. Both describe raw experience as a form of blindness without the structuring power of logic. The Western tradition independently concluded that experiential life remains unformed without a framework of reason. This structural requirement appears again in the Neo-Confucianism of Zhu Si. This tradition centers on Xin, the heart-mind. Xin is driven by qi, or vital energy. Yet Zhu Si observed that untethered human energy is naturally turbid and unstable. This much-needed stability is achieved through Li, the universal principle or reason. Zhu Si's model parallels the mechanical requirement seen in Khusraw's work. The heart-mind must align with the rational principles of Li to find its center. The integration of Li creates the noble person, who possesses a characteristic density and gravity. Across geography and time, Eastern philosophy also identifies rational principle as the necessary tool for stabilizing the human heart. When Khusraw's scales, Rumi's parents of creation, Aristotle's nous, and Zhu Si's Li are placed together, a pattern emerges. These models converge on a single mechanical conclusion. The raw force of consciousness is inherently unstable and requires an external logic to achieve weight and value. Without this structuring force, awareness lacks the density required to sustain a coherent self. This clarifies Nasir Khusraw's warning about ignoring the truth behind your back. To abandon the intellect is to actively ignore the fundamental structures that allow for existence. Existence reaches its full ontological weight through the rigorous synthesis of being.